G'day, it's Simon at South OC Cars and Coffee this morning, and we're getting ready to set up. I see two beautiful Rolls Royces pulling up in the car park across the other side and said, hey, we're going to bring these two guys in. We have Matt and John behind us with two amazing, amazing cars that absolutely deserve Car of the Week. Check these things out. All right, Matt, starting with you and this amazing Roadster. What year is it, first of all? Let's start with that.
Sure, yeah, it's a 1931. It's a 1931 Rolls-Royce P2 Phantom 2 Henley Roadster.
It is so beautiful. And when you pulled up, I asked you the question about whether the coach building was done by Rolls-Royce or whether it was done by somebody under license with Rolls-Royce. This particular car.
Sure. So the Henley Roadster bodies were built by Brewster. It's Brewster design. This is after a time period when Rolls built complete cars in the United States. This is kind of at the end of that when they were still building cars for the American market, but these were built overseas and then imported specifically for customers here.
So, and the thing that blew me away is you said that, you know, it had a respray a long time ago, because I commented on the beautiful pinstriping, and it looked, the car appeared at first as black, but it's actually a very dark green, a British racing green. I think the camera's picking that up, which I'm really pleased about. But you also mentioned the interior's never been touched. That's the original leather interior.
Yeah, the car's only ever really had what it's needed done to it. You know, it's been repainted, a couple things have been re-chromed here and there, but otherwise it's an unrestored car. The body has never been off the chassis, and the seat cushions and door panels and everything are original. Oh,
that's just there's something about a car that has never been restored, because as they say, it's only original once, right?
Absolutely.
So amazing controls, instrumentation. Love the steering wheel controls. You've obviously got the governor there, and you've got the carby adjustment on there as well. But the thing I loved about Rolls-Royce, they're almost aeronautical in the amount of gauges that they gave you, aren't they? Like,
oh yeah.
You can see all the instrumentation, everything that's happening.
Yeah, if there's a way to do something with 10 parts, Rolls will figure out how to do it with 20.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like all the different little things about Rolls-Royce, and you know, whereas other people would turn around and subcontract a lot of what they did, Rolls-Royce is one of those companies that we don't trust anybody to build what we want to build, so we're going to do it ourselves.
I'd love to show you too. One of the coolest features on the Henley Roadster, and it was a really advanced thing for the time, is an actual door to get into the rumble seat.
Oh, look at that. Now, for those that don't know, this is what we're talking about with the rumble seat, and Matt's just going to open that up. So the car appears like it's a two-seater car, but what is effectively the trunk opens up as a rumble street. But the problem was getting into the old rumble street seat. There'd be a step there, and then you have to try and step in, which was not only awkward, but you'd end up with people kicking the side of your car.
Not too graceful.
No, and I want to point out too, look, this is all woodwork through here. The frame on this thing is obviously a wooden frame, being the fact that it's the era that it is, but what a great idea to be able to do that. All the little elegant things on the car. I love looking up at the firewall as well. If you can see up in there, it actually has the Rolls-Royce placard up on the back of the firewall, and the RR on the pedals. And what's the button on the shifter for?
That locks you out of accidentally going to reverse.
Sensational.
Yeah, it's just a reverse lockout.
Which, I mean, just things that way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
So what made you want to buy this car?
Well, I have to preface, I don't own the car. I'm the curator for the Singleton collection in Costa Mesa.
Okay. I've heard about that.
We bought this car because of what it represents to the American car story and how Rolls-Royce played their part with that. So our collection is all American-based automobiles.
Oh, I just love it. Absolutely beautiful car. Can we have a look under the hood?
Sure.
Is that a doable thing? So first thing we notice, you notice got to swivel the lady around so you don't take her wings off, and then under the hood, it's just, I mean, it's an amazing looking car, but so neat. I mean, look at the way that they've handled all of the hiding the high tensile leads, tension leads in there, the plug leads basically. And a really interesting, what appears to be almost like a magneto.
Correct. Yep.
So it's not your standard coil and distributor. It's actually a magneto, which is driven off this obviously shaft, which is coming through to the front of the crankshaft.
All the way to the front, to the timing chain, correct.
And this is the generator, once again, not an alternator, I'm sure, because of this era. So, right at the front, timing chain, generator, drive shaft, and then we come back to the magneto to create ignition. And it's funny, people look at that and go, oh, magnetos, that's not as good as a normal ignition system. You go back into up until the 80s or early 90s, guys building really tough drag cars, they never trusted a coil, they still used magnetos back. The voltage you can get.
I always figured if they trust them on airplanes, we should trust them on cars.
Exactly, and let's face it, where's Rolls-Royce equally known as they are in automobiles is in obviously building aircraft engines. This is absolutely beautiful on every angle, absolutely special. Well, Matt, thank you so much for bringing this out. Love this car. We better jump over and have a look at John's car now.
Thank you.
Okay, on to our car of the week number 2, and John was so humble when I said I wanted to make both of these cars car of the week. He said, do it to Matt's car, and I said, no, I think the pair of these tells a better story of them together. And when you started mentioning some of the things you do with this car, it made it even more interesting to me. So let's start off with the basics. How long have you owned the car, John?
About 3 years.
And what made you want to own a Rolls-Royce like this?
My wife and I had a baby boy, and we were already accustomed to touring cars, and I wanted an enclosed car so we could take our then infant on the long road trips that we were used to doing.
So you obviously have been somebody who's taken these vintage cars and done things like this before. What did you have before this?
Well, I still have a bunch of horseless carriages, mainly open cars, some nickel era cars like locomobiles, but all open bodies and
how interesting.
Not ideal for a newborn.
No, not necessarily. Now this particular car, tell me about the year of the car.
It's 1926.
26, yep.
Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost. It's a Springfield Silver Ghost, so it was built in Springfield, Massachusetts. It's wearing a body in the style of Arundel, as designated by Rolls-Royce, which is an enclosed limousine. And that's the entire reason I bought it, because it's enclosed and it's big, and we can put our luggage in it and lock the doors and go into a restaurant. When my son Douglas was 8 months old, we did a 2,200-mile road trip in it with the Silver Ghost Association, and he was in the back and happy and warm and dry and all that good stuff.
So, and one of the things being the type of vehicle it is, where when it was built originally, there would have been a chauffeur and then there would have been the passengers in the back. You've got this glass divider, much the same as a limousine would have in sort of more modern days.
Right.
So you could be in the front have a conversation with your wife, and he can be in the back and he's shut off from what you're doing, which is kind of cool.
That's right. And this car is also fairly modern in the sense that the chauffeur is inside the car, and it wasn't long before this that the driver would be outside and the body with the roof would begin behind him. And
if the driver was lucky, really lucky, he had a canopy that came over the top of him, but he was pretty much sitting out in the elements the whole time.
That's right. So this car is very egalitarian in that sense.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of beautiful bright work on it, but it's not chrome. It's more of almost like a nickel finish on it, which was really interesting. And little details like the lamps on the side, which I'm guessing, I mean, were they electric in the beginning? Or were they carbide style lamps?
They were electric from the beginning. The carbide lamps and the acetylene lamps and kerosene lamps had gone out of style quite a number of years prior to this.
Right. Okay.
In sort of 1913, 14, they started transitioning to electricity.
Interesting. And the motor in this is obviously a Rolls-Royce motor. Let's talk about that. So what's the format, capacity, all those sort of things on the motor?
It's an inline 6 L head. The displacement is just a little over 7 liters.
Wow.
So the pistons are massive.
Yep.
And it makes a lot of horsepower for what it is, mainly because it's an L head engine. And that was very ahead of its time, because when the Silver Ghost was designed and was introduced in 1908, it was unheard of that you wouldn't have a T-head.
Right, okay.
Even up into the 1920s, competitors of Rolls-Royce like Locomobile in the United States were still using T-head engines. And with an L-head engine, you got a lot more compression.
Right.
And so that made it a very advanced sort of design for its day.
Yeah, interesting. And in terms of things like carburetors, were they using their own built carburetors? Were they using somebody else's?
Everything was their own design. Everything was built and designed by them.
Yeah, which is interesting because you looked at other companies that were around, later years, if it was British, they used Stromberg or SU, and if it's American, it could be Rochester or whatever else. And Rolls-Royce was one of those companies that really was, in everything they did, that it's almost like they didn't want to risk the integrity of what they were building as the world's greatest automobile to be compromised by a component that didn't meet the standard of everything else they were leading to.
That's right. The carburetors are amazing because the high and low jet have adjustable settings that you can adjust from the quadrant on the steering wheel.
Oh, seriously?
So, in my other old cars, you might be going up a mountain pass and you have an elevation change, and you get out and you open the bonnet and you adjust the mixture on the carburetor accordingly. Well, in this, you can be going up hills or down hills, and you can dial in your mixture and have it perfectly at all times, which is really cool.
Yeah, I knew that in a lot of the old cars they had the ability of advancing and retarding the timing, but to actually change the mixture based on altitude, elevation, which is, honestly, until fuel injection came along, that was a problem that still existed with any car with a carburetor. Up until carburetors stopped getting used, I guess, in the sort of the 80s. It was always a problem because your mixture was always determined by air pressure, which in turn is related to altitude, or it could be affected even by, climatic changes like humidity, temperature, all those sort of things can have an effect on the mixture as well.
Well, the other thing that's interesting about this engine design is that it has an integrally located flyball governor attached to your accelerator, and so if you set your speed on the quadrant when you're driving the car at, say, 40 miles an hour, the flyball governor will maintain that speed uphill and downhill.
Wow, that is so clever. Well, this is an amazing car, John. I just appreciate it. When I saw you pull in the parking lot, I thought I got to bring these cars in early because they just represent something we don't see a lot of these days. Even at the show, as many great cars we get here, seeing classic Rolls-Royce in the 20s is not something we see every day. Hey, congratulations on a beautiful car. Congratulations on doing something a lot of people don't, which is actually driving it, which I think is magnificent. And it's also great to actually talk with somebody who knows the story behind the car. So good job, and thank you so much for bringing it out today.
Thank you.
As our Car of the Week winners, both John and Matt, congratulations, guys. You both get this Meguiar's complete kit, which includes the hot shine foam, quick interior detailer, perfect clarity glass cleaner, ultimate wash and wax, hybrid ceramic detailer, and a microfiber towel. Keep these magnificent Rolls-Royces in the wonderful condition they're in. I just appreciate these cars so much. Thanks again for bringing them out.